guys, Dave from Days of Glory Shopworks here. This is part 2 of the jigsaw puzzle, my daughter's 2007 Hyundai Tucson. So if you recall from the part 1, we got the vehicle with the engine, the top end tore off. It had broken a timing belt and bent some valves, so my friend had ripped it apart and bought the parts to repair it, and we bought the vehicle from him in that condition. So to start out, all I do when I'm doing this is I take a red Scotch-Brite pad on a sanding block, I clean the surface a little bit, then I go straight to a 220 sandpaper on the sanding block as well to keep the surface level. Now, if you need to, you can razor blade some of the original head gasket material off. I do that most times. But anyway, the end result is a nice, clean, flat, level surface with no issues for sealing on the new head gaskets. From there, moving on to the valve seats and throw a little bit of valve lapping compound in place. Put the valves in, some are new, some are used, all are straight, and proceed to lap them in. Pretty basic stuff. Then just pull them all out, check the wear surface for the seat to the valve seat, and clean all the residue out. Nothing fancy. I'd like to mark them as I go with my little red paint marker there. Put a paint daub or a check mark or something on them to make sure I know where I was so I don't have to backtrack. Then just putting in some valve seals. Before that, I like to lubricate the top of the valve stem with some assembly lube or engine oil, whatever you got handy. Anyway, seat them in place with a little tap on a hammer and you're good to go. Right to the next step. We're not messing around. It's on to putting the valve springs, retainers, and keepers in place. There's a bit of an exercise in patience on this engine, I must say. We're looking at deep pockets for the valves to sit in due to it being a twin overhead cam V6 with 4 valves per cylinder. And they're small stem valves and tiny keepers. So yeah, a little bit of an exercise in patience, but we managed to get her all together. One part at a time. That's how you do it. These heads are almost 200,000 K on them, I believe. They have some staining, some built up deposits from maybe lack of oil changes or just time. That's all it is, heat cycles. So we're not worried about bringing these things right back to pristine condition. This is going in a regular daily driver. It's going to see miles of wear, miles of carbon buildup, you name it, and I would be a fool to think that I could clean everything to within an inch of its life and it would stay that way. I've pulled apart too many engines to see the difference, so basic good cleaning practices are in order, yes, but nothing extraordinary here. We're sticking to the premise of doing production retail shop repair, which when done correctly is a good long repair. You just don't see any of the fancy stuff you would be doing with a a race engine, we'll say, where you've got it on the stand and everything has to be perfect. So essentially that's where we're at with this guy. This is the other cylinder head now, pulling the keepers and retainers and springs out to get the valves out. This one had quite a few more bent valves in it than the other one, but it's getting all new exhaust valves and 2 replacement intake valves. The rest were actually okay. And checking my valve seat wear pattern with the valve lapping compound is exactly what showed me that. So I have 0 issues of sealing on this head or the other one when it comes right down to it. So at the end of the day, what we're going to do is make sure that we get everything all taken care of, we get it all done in, and we're happy. So this is just finishing up removing all the valve springs, thank goodness for extendable magnets. Pulling out all the valves. I've got all the exhaust valves were bent, and like I said before, 2 intake valves, so those went straight into the trash. No need to keep that junk around, and away we go. So once we get the last couple valves out here, we'll flip the head over, give a quick wipe of the seats, and from there, valve lapping compound, put all the new valves in and the cleaned ones, and we are good to go. Forgot one step here. We have to remove the valve seals to make it easier to do the lapping. So, and that's it. Just a simple forked trim tool actually worked beautifully to pop the valve seals up. And always count them. You want to make sure you got them all out. They're small and they could hide in a pocket in a cylinder head, and that'd be the last thing you need is one of those banging around. Get into an oil gallery and plug up the oil flow and starve the engine of oil. We don't want that kind of stuff. But with that taken care of, count them all up. There we go. Okay. And I never throw them away. I never throw any of my parts away except for like bent valves until the job is complete, because you just never know what you're going to need or what might happen. So anyway, onto the valve lapping compound. Simply lap them in just like you normally would on any engine. And from there, we pull the valves out. We check each one of them's wear pattern. If we're happy, which we were, then on to cleaning all the valve lapping compound out, and we're back to assembly. Once we take care of all of the valve lapping compound too, I must add. You don't want any of that sitting around inside the engine, so being thorough at that spot will help you in the future. Again, just marking everything to make sure that I've got it all lined up. Then a little bit of lubricant on top of the valve seals. I'm using engine assembly lube, but like I said, you could use engine oil, transmission fluid, even anything that's a good lubricant, and you're lapping. Putting in the valve seals, again, they're down in deep holes, so needle nose pliers were a must for me. And then just seat them home. I'm using a deep socket. I think it's a 3/8 deep socket. It hits the shoulder of the valve seal and doesn't damage the inner stem of the seal, so quite happy about that. Getting the keepers in place, yeah, a little bit of an exercise in patience again, but managed to get her all done. Like, this whole process took me about 2.5 hours. I'm pretty happy with how everything went, considering I'd never pulled a set of these heads apart in my life. And I did have to look at one head to see how the other one was taken apart, you know, things like that. But this is it. Just seating in the valve, or seating the valves now. Throw a little bit of lubricant on the tops of the valve stems again, and lubricate the holes that the lifter buckets sit in. They are a machined hole after all. I just used regular synthetic engine oil for that. And from there, plunk in the lifter buckets. I'd marked them all and put them all back in the same location. Don't want to have any weird wear characteristics for the cam. But anyway, guys, that's really it. It's not rocket science. I know the job is done well, and I have every reason to believe this thing's going to be happy. Have a good day.